If the kidnappers thought they could continue to blackmail the police with this method, they were too naive. Greg Wang had his own ways to deal with these guys. An hour later, right on time, the kidnappers called, "Is the money ready?" Yes. Is it stacks of 100,000 yuan bricks? Yes, that's how the bank gives it. Are you planning to use counterfeit money? Lily Wang hurriedly said, "No, it will definitely be real money." "Can I talk to my son again?" "No, you're asking for too much. Your son talking too much is only bad for us. I beg you not to slander my identity. I'm not a good person, let alone a philanthropist. I'm a kidnapper." Enough with the nonsense. Well, it seems I'm the one talking nonsense. All right, no more nonsense this time. Can you drive? No. Then how will you get here? Where? It's a bit far. Greg Wang's eyes flashed, and he quickly signaled her to reply according to the plan. The 3 million is too heavy for me to carry alone. Can my cousin come with me? Your cousin, why does it always have to be a relative in these scenarios? You're not bringing an undercover cop, are you? The kidnapper laughed continuously. Greg Wang quickly gave a look, and Lily Wang calmed down, saying, "No, it really is my cousin, you can check." The kidnapper laughed bitterly. "Oh. You know I can't check, so you say it so confidently. Fine, come with your cousin. Remember, if you bring the police, there can be no deal. Your cousin can drive, right? Drive to the South Lake Reservoir. See you there." After hanging up the phone. South Lake Reservoir? Greg Wang immediately started calculating. The South Lake Reservoir was in the countryside, very large, surrounded by mountains, and about 20 kilometers away from the county town. If the kidnappers wanted to make the exchange there, the lake was surrounded by mountains, which was very disadvantageous for the police to set up an ambush. But at this point, there was no other choice but to continue the transaction with the kidnappers. Anyway, there was a GPS tracking device placed with the money. Could the kidnappers really escape? Greg Wang quickly ordered Lee to carry a gun and pretend to be the cousin, to go with Lily Wang, to ensure her protection. At the same time, a small walkie-talkie device was installed in Lee's collar. The walkie-talkie had a maximum effective range of 1,000 meters. The police force followed behind, instructing him to contact them immediately if anything happened, not to fall into the kidnappers' trap. Additionally, a big bag of real money and a big bag of counterfeit money were both loaded into the car, waiting for Greg Wang's instructions on which to use. The location of the South Lake Reservoir was very remote. Although it was only 20 kilometers away from the county town in a straight line, after driving a section of the provincial road from the county town, it turned into a winding rural road. After driving for a while, a dirt road appeared, full of potholes, winding towards the deep mountains. After nearly an hour of driving, they finally reached the deepest part of the mountain area, where a huge lake appeared. The lake had several bends, and it was impossible to see the edge. It was a large reservoir built around the mountains. This reservoir was the largest drinking water source in Jean County. Because the terrain of the reservoir area was deep, people who usually fished in their spare time were not willing to travel so far. So, after they got out of the car, they found that there was no one in sight. Greg Wang, along with the police, drove a car with a regular license plate, secretly following behind at a distance of about 1,000 meters. At the same time, they were also careful to watch out for anyone else lurking around. After Lee and Lily Wang got out of the car, Greg Wang's car turned into a small winding road outside the reservoir and hid, while he had already ordered the personnel in other vehicles to quietly run to the mountains near the reservoir area and hide. Lily Wang dialed several mobile numbers of the kidnapper, all turned off. After a long wait, the kidnapper finally called, "Have you arrived?" "We've arrived." "Where are you?" Lily Wang and Lee looked around but saw no one. You want to ask if I'm hiding in the mountains watching you, right? Greg Wang was shocked, as the kidnapper had guessed their intention. Lily Wang didn't know how to answer. The kidnapper continued confidently, every move you make is under my control. Don't bother looking up for my position. You'll know where I am soon enough. Just follow my instructions for the transaction. Of course, I've warned you, don't think about using counterfeit money. Even if the police are following from afar, you won't be able to save your son. Greg Wang listened to the phone, analyzing secretly that the kidnapper must be on a mountain somewhere, observing with a telescope, which is why he was so confident. Lily Wang could only continue to follow the instructions. When will you release the person? When we receive the money, naturally. How can I believe you will keep your promise? The kidnapper laughed easily. It's really not easy to prove. I can't show you my credit card repayment record to prove I'm a trustworthy person. Whether you believe it or not is your business. Your son's life is in our hands. You can choose not to trade. Greg Wang instructed Lily Wang, agree to him, trade first. Lily Wang said, okay, how do I give you the money? Do you know the stone beach? Come to the stone beach first, I'll continue to call you. After saying that, he hung up the phone. About 500 or 600 meters away from their current position, there was a stone beach. The two got into the car, drove there, and the police following behind also got out of their car, moving stealthily forward to keep the distance within the range of the walkie-talkie. After arriving at the stone beach, it wasn't long before the kidnapper called again. There's a particularly large tree on the outer circle of the north side of the stone beach, much larger than the surrounding trees. Do you see it? They looked up and saw the particularly large tree was very conspicuous, surrounded by other smaller trees, but there was no one around. Where was the kidnapper? Lily Wang could only agree, I see it, what next? Go to the tree, there's a box behind it. Find the box first, we'll talk later. Then he hung up the phone. Greg Wang clenched his teeth. The kidnapper was too cunning, using new phone cards every time, and the calls were very short, making it impossible to pinpoint the signal source. Lily Wang and Lee walked to the tree and indeed saw a large box under a stone slab. They picked up the box and weighed it. It was empty. Then the kidnapper called again, did you find the box? Yes. Take the box to your car, load the money. There are 30 sheets of aluminum foil in the box. Wrap the stacks of 100,000 yuan bricks with aluminum foil, wrap them tightly, and put them in the box. Don't use counterfeit money. Oh, I'll know right away if it's fake. If it's counterfeit, then it's goodbye forever. You can consider whether to trust the police or me. I gave the police 3 days, and they still couldn't catch us. If the police encourage you to use counterfeit money, bear the consequences. After saying that, he hung up the phone. Lily Wang was uneasy. She had also thought of using counterfeit money, but the kidnappers repeated confident threats to herself and the police, and the fact that the kidnapper had given the police 3 days without being caught showed that the kidnappers' methods were more sophisticated than the police's. Plus, with the police force far away at 1,000 meters, how could they provide support in time? They had to use real money, or else her son's life would be in danger. Seeing Lily Wang's unusual expression, Lee understood her concerns and whispered into the collar microphone, "Boss, what do we do now?" Lily Wang spoke into the microphone, "Chief Wang, let's use real money, just in case. It would be bad otherwise. With real money, you have the satellite positioning device, so we can definitely get the money back." Greg Wang took a deep breath. He couldn't fathom the kidnapper's intentions. Why put the money in this box, and why wrap it with aluminum foil? What did he mean by knowing immediately whether it's real or fake? He didn't dare to be careless. If the kidnapper was hiding on the mountain and suddenly appeared for the transaction, and their police force was too far away to provide immediate support, although Lee had a gun, he was just one person, and the kidnapper might also have a gun. If the kidnapper discovered it was counterfeit money, they would definitely know they had been tricked, and then immediately notify the other kidnappers to kill the hostage. Even if they controlled the kidnapper who came for the transaction, they wouldn't be able to save the hostage. If the hostage died because of the police's impulsiveness in a kidnapping case, Greg Wang would have to take some responsibility. He didn't want to do that. And since Lily Wang herself also thought of using real money, what else did he have to worry about? Having made up his mind, he instructed, "Do as the kidnapper says." Lee also put the GPS device in the box. Right, if the kidnapper shows up later, try to lure him to a hidden spot. Other kidnappers might be watching from somewhere on the mountain with a telescope. Pick a spot with cover so the others can't observe your situation. At the same time, find out as much as you can about him and take control. Okay, boss, I'll adapt as necessary. Lee was both excited and nervous. If he handled this successfully, he would definitely be credited with a major contribution, and his chances of promotion would be great. Plus, he had a gun, and he was confident in his marksmanship, having been rated as a sharpshooter during practice. He wasn't afraid of any tricks the kidnapper might play. The two took the box to the car, opened it, and indeed it was an empty box with a stack of aluminum foil inside, the kind used for barbecuing. The kidnapper repeatedly reminded not to use counterfeit money, or else he would immediately kill the hostage. Lily Wang didn't dare to neglect, and Lee didn't care, since the chief had already said to use real money, and it wasn't his own money anyway. Plus, he would be guarding the box with a gun, ready to control the kidnapper as soon as he appeared. Moreover, a GPS tracking device would be placed in the box later. Even if the kidnapper threatened to take the money with the hostage, unless he ran off the planet, his location would be under police control every moment. Two people brought out the bag filled with real money, took out the money bricks, wrapped them one by one with aluminum foil, and placed them in the box. Then, they waited for the kidnapper's call. A few minutes later, the kidnapper called again. "Is it all packed?" "It's packed." "Make sure it's sealed tight, don't let it leak." Lily Wang asked in confusion, "What shouldn't leak?" "You'll have to throw the box into the reservoir later." "If it leaks, wouldn't I have to dry the money?" "Of course, don't wrap the money in plastic bags outside the foil, it would affect my ability to check the money. If you wrap it in plastic bags, the deal is off just the same." Everyone was shocked by these words. Throwing the box into the water, could it be that the kidnapper planned to retrieve the money by diving? This twist was clearly beyond Greg Wang's expectations. He never dreamed the kidnapper would use such a method to exchange the ransom. No wonder they weren't afraid of the police. He was stunned. If the ransom was to be delivered this way, it was clear the kidnapper had made thorough preparations, but the police had taken no preventative measures. The reservoir was vast and boundless. If the kidnapper took the money from under the water and quickly swam away to shore somewhere, what then? Lee immediately ran to the side and asked in a low voice, "Boss, what do we do?" Before Greg Wang could come up with a solution, the kidnapper's voice came through again. "Wrap the money completely, close the box, then go to the largest rock by the stone beach near the reservoir, and throw the box down. 3 minutes later, we'll collect the money and release the person if everything checks out. If we don't see the money after 3 minutes, then you'll never see your son again." Before they could react, the kidnapper hung up. Greg Wang pursed his lips. 3 minutes passed in the blink of an eye, leaving no time for him to think of a response. He bit his lip and thought for a few seconds, then asked, "Is the box just a regular suitcase?" "Yes, nothing unusual." "Are there bags inside?" "Yes, Ziploc bags." "Will GPS get damaged by water?" "It's waterproof, no worries." "Good, then stuff the GPS tracking ball into the bag and pack it well." Greg Wang thought to himself, Kidnapper, oh kidnapper, even if you dive to take the money, I'm afraid you won't live to spend it. Lee immediately stuffed the tracking device as instructed, then said, Boss, what next? With time pressing, it's too late to switch the money now. Do as the kidnapper asked, check all the money again, pack it well, and make sure it doesn't get wet. Lily Wang, don't worry, even if the kidnapper takes the money, we'll definitely be able to track it down. Lee, when you throw the box, don't throw it too far, try to throw it in a shallow area, and be ready with your gun. If the kidnapper appears from under the lake, we must find a way to control the situation. His order was ambiguous, leaving Lee confused. How to control the situation if the kidnapper appears from under the lake? Shoot directly? Or jump into the water to fight the kidnapper? That location was not concealed. Whether shooting directly or jumping into the water to fight, the other kidnappers watching from afar would definitely see it, leading to a certain tearing up of the ticket. Who would be responsible if the hostage was killed? Of course, the responsibility couldn't fall on the leader. It always fell on oneself. Lee was initially hoping to accumulate merit through this operation, but now it seemed difficult to manage, causing him significant distress. Lily Wang just hoped her son could come back alive. She also considered that her son's chances were slim, even if the ransom was paid. How likely was it that her son could really come back alive? Now that her son was still in the kidnapper's hands, she was helpless and could only rely on the police. Even if she doubted whether Greg Wang's order would endanger her son's life, she had no better option but to follow it. The two quickly checked the money bricks again. Since aluminum foil could be crinkled, the money was tightly wrapped inside, and it would definitely not get wet in a short time. The kidnapper warned not to wrap it in plastic bags, which would affect his ability to count the money. Firstly, they didn't have such large plastic bags, and secondly, there was no time to wrap it more securely. Anyway, the money wouldn't get wet for the time being, and if the kidnapper took the money, its location could be tracked, so they proceeded as planned. A little over a minute later, the two were ready. Lee carried the large box, ran to the outermost large rock on the stone beach, and estimated the lake water below the rock to be 3 to 4 meters deep. With such deep water, it would be very difficult to directly shoot the kidnapper if he appeared, and he dared not jump into the water to fight a diving kidnapper barehanded. He looked around, through the box toward a slightly shallower area on the right side, about less than 2 meters deep and very close. He lay down, thinking that if the kidnapper appeared, shooting him shouldn't be a big problem. Whether other kidnappers would notice if he shot directly at the bottom of the lake was hard to say. He could only take it one step at a time. After the box was thrown, it floated for a few seconds before quickly sinking. Bubbles started to emerge from the surface of the box, clearly indicating that water was gradually seeping in. Then, more and more bubbles began to appear. Soon, 3 minutes were up, and the surroundings of the lake were eerily quiet, with no sign of the kidnapper. Lee lay hiding on one side of the rock, observing carefully, his heart racing. Boss, no one's coming. Wait a bit longer. A few more minutes passed, and the kidnapper still didn't appear. Bubbles continued to emerge from the box, indicating that water was constantly flowing in. Lee's palms, holding the gun, were sweating. The surroundings were silent, it being winter, without even the sound of insects or birds. Lily Wang stood by the car in the distance, extremely anxious. A few more minutes passed, and still, nothing happened. The box remained sunk at the bottom of the water, with no one coming to take it. Boss, still no one's coming. Greg Wang had a strange premonition that they had fallen into the kidnapper's trap, but he couldn't pinpoint what exactly the trap was. After hesitating for a moment, he asked, "Could the money get wet?" Lee confidently replied, "No, we packed it very tightly." The aluminum foil was folded several times. Even if the box got wet, the money wouldn't. Even if the money got wet, the bank could still exchange it. After some thought, Greg Wang said, "All right, let's wait a bit longer." Almost 10 minutes passed, during which they repeatedly inquired about the situation. At this point, Greg Wang could no longer hold back and said, "Let's pull up the box first." Lee hesitated. "Pull it up? What if the kidnapper is hiding nearby in the water, waiting for me to go down, then he makes his move to snatch the box?" Greg Wang took a deep breath. This possibility was not non-existent. If the kidnapper wore a diving suit and hid on one side, waiting for Lee to go down and then suddenly attacked with a spear gun or something, it might not only result in the loss of the money and the hostage, but also the sacrifice of a police officer. Just as Greg Wang was indecisive, the kidnapper's call came again. "I checked, and your so-called cousin is actually an undercover cop. So, this ransom exchange is cancelled for now. I won't tear up the ticket yet. I'll give you another chance. Let's make the exchange tomorrow. I'll notify you then, but don't bring any cousin next time. This plot isn't fun at all." After saying that, he hung up. Greg Wang clenched his fists tightly, cursing the kidnapper's entire family in his heart. After all this time, it turned out they were just being toyed with. He was about to order Lee to pull up the box when he thought that this might be another trick by the kidnapper. It was better to be safe. He immediately instructed his subordinates to drive directly to the reservoir and pull up the box together. Finally, the box was pulled up. Lily Wang was at a loss, resenting that from beginning to end, it was the police who messed things up, causing trouble. After all this time, they were still seen through by the kidnapper, and the transaction was temporarily halted. She imagined her son suffering in the kidnapper's hands, and tears flowed like water. Before she could grieve enough, a loud shout from the other side caught everyone's attention. "Boss, what? What's going on?" Lee shouted after opening the box. The aluminum foil was gone, and so was the money. When the box was opened, it was filled with water, and all the aluminum foil had mysteriously disappeared. And the stacks of money had turned into a mushy mess, as if they had been soaked in detergent. The patterns on the money had turned into black and brown patches. Lee pulled apart a stack of money, trying to break it open, but found it had turned into a tofu drake's texture, sticking together when squeezed. Only a small red pattern remained in the middle, with the vast majority of the area completely unrecognizable as money. In other words, 3 million was wasted. What? What happened? Where did the aluminum foil go? How could the money turn into this? Everyone was dumbfounded, staring at the mess in the box. Greg Wang's mouth hung open, unable to make a sound, feeling a cold sweat breaking out on his back. Lily Wang was even more at a loss. She had been worried about her son's safety, but now she found that the cash for the transaction was completely ruined. The money had turned into this state, completely unrecognizable as money, and the bank would definitely not exchange it.